3 NBA playoff games to discuss here on Monday, plus a few MLB looks as well. You're going to want to write down all the line movement, some key trends. We got a 41-19 angle you're going to want to hear about. Our first week doing the show together here, the Morning Wager, we went 4-1 on best bets. As always, we're going to have one at the end of the show today. But let's start with the NBA playoffs.
I mean, let's just talk Lakers in Denver here real quick. We keep seeing this -7 number pop up here for Denver. It was that way in game 1 at home. It was that way in game 2 at home. We saw some wild sort of movement when the games got to Los Angeles here. But again, this is a spot here. I was wrong. The Lakers didn't get swept. But still, there's nothing that the Lakers do better than the Nuggets when it comes to basketball. So I would expect Denver to cover this number. I keep trying to play Denver in the first half in this series, and I keep getting screwed, so I'm not doing that anymore. But don't be surprised to see Denver end up with a lead at halftime. You know, they're paying a little bit of a premium with a 4-point spread if you wanted to take Denver in the first half because they are so good. But, you know, I think this is one of these games here where the first half play logically makes sense from the standpoint of if Denver doesn't get a big lead at half and lets LA hang around, then guess what? Then LA is probably going to cover this 7.5 number. But Denver should really want to come out and step on their throats early and take them out of the game. That feels like it's probably the more advantageous route for the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned there's nothing the Lakers do better than the Nuggets. We should point out, you alluded to it, they've been ahead at halftime in all 4 games. They've held a double-digit lead in all 4 games. Imagine if they had just won one of those first 3. It'd be a much different series we talk about. By the way, some movement on the total here, 218.5 down to 216.5, Mark.
I mean, the other thing, too, is what we've seen in both games in Denver. The Lakers wilted in the second half. Call it the altitude, elevation, whatever you want to call it old legs, but you know, that's part of the reason why these numbers went under because they just ran out of steam, ran out of gas in the second half of those games and couldn't score.
I mentioned a 41-19 trend I have here on the docket for tonight's NBA slate. That applies to this Oklahoma City-New Orleans game, Mark, as Oklahoma City looks to do what Minnesota did last night, and that's finish off a sweep. Road favorites. Okay, now this did not apply last night because Minnesota did not close as a road favorite, but Oklahoma City is a road favorite. We've seen some line movement up from -3.5 to -5, and teams like OKC that are road favorites in Game 4, up 3-0 in a best-of-7 series, 41-19 straight up since 2003, including 29-15 in round 1. So history says OKC will finish off the sweep here. Now, against the spread, things are a little bit tighter, as you might expect. 31-27-2 ATS, 25-19 in round 1. I've got a 4% best bet on this matchup available right now at my page, wt.buzz/BP. I will mention this. New Orleans, the first team since the Raptors in 2016 to score 92 or fewer points in the first or in 3 consecutive playoff games. Pardon me. Yeah. The total has stayed pat at 205.
Crazy to think that it's only been 8 short years since the NBA has changed so dynamically that scoring less than 92 points all of a sudden seems like just a completely inept offensive performance. And to an extent it is. You give credit to Oklahoma City. Look, I keep trying to tell people, and you and I had this conversation last night, we were on the phone, you know, if you objectively take Oklahoma City off the jersey and take New Orleans off the jersey, and you look at the 1 seed versus the 8 seed, and you look at the numbers, you would go, okay, well, it's only a 5-point spread. The 1 seed should cover this number. And that's genuinely the way I feel. I mean, you know, I was going back and forth last night at 4.5, and obviously it's moved to 5, but this thing opened at 3.5 and was quickly bet up. So I think Oklahoma City is a markedly better team. I think the one shot that New Orleans had was to steal game 1 when the young Thunder had some nerves about them and didn't really shoot that well. The last 2 games they've shot very well, more consistent with what they've done in the regular season. And you start to see as you go deeper in these series, BP, I'm hopeful, and I think we're starting to see this trend where the shooting starts to normalize, right, to what we've seen during regular season numbers. So I expect that here from Oklahoma City again. I lean on them. I'd lay the points with them. I didn't get to the window on this game just because I have a 5% play in the Miami-Boston game we'll get to in a minute. But, you know, I kind of felt like Oklahoma City was the way I would go.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You look at a lot of these series, the totals are really bottoming out relative to where they were in game 1, right? I had an over yesterday in the Clippers-Dallas. You know, the total for that game closed, I believe, 10.5 points, 11.5 points lower than where it closed in game one. And we've got another low total in Boston, Miami. The third game, Miami, hey, we had their team total over in game two. They had an NBA playoff record, 23 threes in that game, but they come back at home, get crushed by the Celtics by 20 in game three. Now they're plus 10.5, Miami. Pretty much where the number opened. Interesting that there's been no line move because the Celtics, you'd expect they'd be a public side. They are a public side. There's also been little movement with the total, which opened 203.5. It's now 203.5 or 203, depending on your book. You mentioned the 5% play you've got on this matchup, available right now on your page, wt.buzz/MZ. Is there anything you'd like to add before we move to MLB?
No, again, wt.buzz/MZ. It's a 5% play. I've also thrown 2 baseball plays in there, guys. Number 2 at WagerTalk in winning percentage and ROI since April 1st. So we're coming up on 1 month here. We've really locked in on Major League Baseball. So we got 2 plays there tonight as well. But, I will say this much about Boston and Miami. What is interesting, obviously, the one game where Miami won, they shot the lights out. And the number still feels right. If Miami doesn't have that level of shooting, I'm not sure how competitive they can be in the game. But the pace of both these teams is incredibly slow. So that leads to making it more difficult to cover a big number in this game. But it's going to be interesting to see how we go. Again, wt.buzz/MZ for my 5% play in Boston and Miami tonight. All right, BP, let's move on.
All right, Major League Baseball. Mark mentioned he's seeing them well, so let's talk about some Major League Baseball. I will take the first half of our double play here, and hold your nose, Zinno, because this is absolutely gross. Miami Marlins, they are minus 145 on the money line in the series finale with the Washington Nationals. Look, I know I said on Friday's show the Marlins probably don't deserve to be favored against anybody, maybe save for the Rockies and the White Sox. And I won on Saturday against the Marlins. Nice cash, Nats plus 124 there. But here we've got a situation, and it doesn't come up that often, Mark, where we've got a home team, Miami, looking to avoid getting swept in a 4-game series. Yesterday, what happened in that game? The Marlins, who were 11-2 against the Nationals last year, oh, by the way, were up 7-0 after the second inning. Not only did they not lose, they didn't even cover in the first 5 innings. It just all went wrong. It's been a dire season in South Beach. I understand this, but I cannot see the Washington Nationals going on the road and sweeping a 4-game series. So I will hold my nose here with Miami. Trevor Rogers versus Jake Irvin is your starting pitching matchup for tonight. Oh, by the way, first pitch, 6:40 Eastern. I just think that league-wide trend of home teams that are facing the prospect of being swept in a 4-game series as opposed to a 3-game series is just, I just think Miami, look, they were up 7-0 yesterday. I think they can circle the wagons and get a rare victory on Monday. Might be the only time I support Miami the rest of the month. Rest of the year, I guess. Month's almost over.
I mean, look, if there's something ugly out there, you absolutely will find it and make it look beautiful. Because that's what you do. For my half of the double play, going to go to the last game on the dock tonight, Major League Baseball. Pittsburgh and Oakland. Pirates and A's open a series out west. I know the Pirates have come back down to earth a little bit here, but I kind of like the price. And you add in the fact that the A's do not hit lefties well. They're bottom 5 in batting average, OPS, and WRC plus against lefties. Bailey Falter, the lefty starter for the Pirates, he's been more effective than last year, a 3.33 ERA and a sub-1 whip at .098. Should do well enough here to keep the Oakland offense from scoring. And the Pittsburgh Pirates are going up against A's starter Joe Boyle, who pitches like a boil. ERA 7.06, and his whip is 1.8. He's walked 16 batters in 21 2/3 innings. Now, both of these bullpens are good, and you have to give some credit here to the A's pitching, but I'm kind of handicapping the fact that the Pirates will get to Boyle and score enough here, and I really don't think more than 3 runs is really what's needed because the A's are just as an offense that's not hitting and not scoring, and if Falter does his job as the lefty against the top of this lineup or the first couple of times through the lineup, should be more than enough here. So let's take the Pittsburgh Pirates on the money line out in Oakland tonight for my half of the double play.
I like the Marlins. He likes the Pirates. That is your double play show best bet coming up in just a minute. By the way, if you're looking for more MLB breakdowns, you can check me out 2 p.m. Eastern. I'll be with our good friend Drew Martin Betts on First Pitch here on Wager Talk. All right, Zinno, let's close it out. A game you and I agree on. It is a very, very tough spot for the Chicago Cubs tonight. Heartbreaking loss on Sunday Night Baseball against the Red Sox. The Cubs were down 4-0 in Fenway. They rally to tie it at 4, and then they lose in the bottom of the ninth on a bloop single that was nearly caught, but it was not caught, so they lost 5-4.
And again, it's situational, but also the Cubs, prior to Sunday Night Baseball, got mollywopped 17-0 on Saturday. Yeah. So it has been a rough go of things. The Mets, on the flip side, were at home against the Cardinals, at a come-from-behind win in extra innings against St. Louis here. So you're kind of got two teams going in opposite directions situationally. And then when really you look at the starters here, there's a feeling that they cancel each other out a little bit. Luis Severino, who was awful last year for the Yankees, has been plus for the Mets. Had a bad start to start the year, but he's kind of leveled off a little bit to something a little bit more respectable against Jameson Taillon. Wow, two former Yankee pitchers going up against each other. That's weird, BP. Didn't see that one coming. But Taillon is a guy just generally gives up a lot of hits, gives up a lot of runs. He's got a 4.84 ERA from last year, 1.28 WHIP. He's making his first start on the season after coming off the IL. So who knows what he's going to be? But the numbers tell you he might be able to get hit around a little bit here, so we'll see what happens. But I think the Mets situationally, the right spot at home here up against the Chicago Cubs.
Show best bet is the New York Mets. You heard the man. If you like what you heard today, go ahead, smash that like button. Give this video a thumbs up. We always appreciate your support here on WagerTalk TV. And if you think there's something we missed, feel free to leave a comment down below. Either Mark or myself will be sure to reply. And one final note, if you are not already one of the 151,000 subscribers to the WagerTalk YouTube channel, please do so now by clicking that subscribe button. That way you don't miss any of our exclusive sports betting content, including the Morning Wager, Mark, where each and every day we give the folks multiple free plays, Major League Baseball, NBA. We've got you covered.